Boots on the ground in Boulder, Colorado today. And Max, you are surprised. Like, I don't know if it's
turn right for
not surprisingly enough in the center of the college football world now, because Deion Sanders was already, getting a ton of attention there. And now he's come off of the win the first week. They're playing an old rival in Nebraska, a rivalry you know a ton about. But is this vibe around Boulder and the build-up for this game even bigger than you could have possibly imagined given that win last week?
Yeah, totally. And I think, when I was looking ahead to the week 2 schedule, there's just so many games I loved and kind of assumed I'd probably be like at Alabama, Texas or something like that. But here we are. This is a game that, you certainly could have circled just because of some implications like that. It's year 1 for both these staffs. It's kind of, to me, feels like kind of weirdly a must-win game in some ways, maybe morally or whatever, early on here. But what Colorado did in Fort Worth completely raised the stakes. I mean, we never would have guessed that the Buffs would be sitting in the top 25 now, and a team that people have totally flipped consensus on now to be taken like very seriously. So I can't wait to see what this first home game for Coach Prime looks like. The turnout, the energy of it tomorrow morning. Obviously, a little bit of an early kick here, 10 a.m. kick here, but man, that game is going to get a lot of eyeballs, and I think that's just kind of that's kind of the phenomenon of Deion Sanders too. I think there's just going to be way more people tuning into this one. Very curious to see if Colorado can repeat it.
Max, when you looked at the schedule a few months ago, I thought, this is going to be probably a good game for Matt Rule and Deion Sanders as like measuring stick to see where they are and, what, where their deficiencies were, especially when you're talking about two teams. Matt Rule's got a team full of transfers. Deion's team is almost 100% transfers. And you have all that going on, and then last week happens. Nebraska looked good on defense when they're playing Minnesota. This Colorado offense is electric. So now you've got kind of two styles clashing here. Do you think that they can put up 45 again, or do you think that Nebraska, and whatever skill they have on defense, will be able to contain that a little bit better?
Yeah, that's the thing about Colorado is like it was easy to like on paper question offensive defensive line and just kind of like these positions that they totally remade in the portal, like would ultimately the talent and depth be good enough. But it was very obvious that Jimmy Horn, Xavier Weaver, and Dylan Edwards, like that, they brought some legit playmakers in there, and to see them be that prolific that quickly was surprising. But you knew those guys would be good, and I think that's where Nebraska is kind of lacking in this matchup is you just don't feel like there's a lot of game-changing dudes on offense for them. But, I think style-wise, they need to play a different kind of game. I think that, that they need to be able to run the ball and extend drives and limit how many possessions Colorado gets in that first half and kind of try to set the game flow there a little bit. And that's why I do think it'll be a little bit of – if Nebraska can kind of play good defense and get some stops, I think it will be a little bit of a lower-scoring game. I still think Colorado is going to win, but I think Nebraska is tough enough to maybe throw some different things at Colorado than TCU was able to, and it's certainly a lot is going to be put on Jeff Sims' pass game and run game to really be super productive and and give Nebraska a chance to keep up.
All right, one of the other big stories this week was Clemson and their loss to Duke, which, Duke was in control pretty much the entire second half. Dabo Swinney's not concerned, Max, about everything, and he's kind of gone into the ultimate coach speak robot after that loss. It would be premature to call at the end, but he is ready to die on the hill of the transfer portal is bad and NIL is bad. And even the other coaches who believe the exact same things he does have just accepted the new order of things. Will this undo him if he doesn't back off?
That's a good way to ask it. I think, usually I think we've seen the last few years, Dabo Swinney, when it comes to his press conferences and his post games, he's usually going to stick to whatever message he thinks his team needs to hear and not really care how the media takes it. And probably right now it's trying to hold things together and inspire a little confidence because this team has to get a lot better really quickly, before they see Florida State in a few weeks here. I think that You're right. Like, there's definitely lots of coaches in the business who slap Dabo Swinney on the back and say, this guy gets it. This guy is saying all the right stuff in this really volatile time. But at the same time, I think you do have to embrace this a little bit. And I think you need to be pretty realistic about what are your roster needs. And you can't just always a believer assume that a freshman or a backup can step up and replace a guy and you're going to be just as good. I think we're seeing that's the area where the transfer portal is helping a lot of programs just stay good or get a lot better quickly. And I think you even look at Georgia. Look, Georgia was very proud of the fact that they didn't take any transfers for their 2022 team that won another national title. But going into 23, like, they took receivers from Missouri and Mississippi State, not because they totally needed them. Like, they still had pass catchers coming back, but they knew that receiver was a spot where they had to get a little bit better. And, even just to be safe, you went out and got some good ones. And I think that Clemson, that's the kind of stuff Clemson probably needs to be in that territory of Georgia, Alabama, Texas, some of these schools that kind of focus on quality and not quantity when it comes to transfers. I think Clemson would be very competitive in that market if Dabo Swinney was open to it. I think it's not a matter of players not wanting to go to Clemson. I do think he needs to be more open-minded about it. And if you want to stay stubborn and just take backup quarterbacks and really kind of stay out of all of that, I do think ultimately, like, you are probably going to fall behind.
Alabama and Texas. Max, you said that you thought that might be the game you were going to this week, but here you are in Boulder. But this could be Steve Sarkisian's signature win, which he hasn't had yet, which is fine. I mean, he's building the program, but is this Texas team the one that will get it for him and do it in Bryant-Denny?
I mean, this is like the Texas is back game, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's what they're going to be saying if they pull it off on the road. Certainly Nick Saban hasn't lost many games in his home stadium since he took that job. I think the thing that gives you like a little bit of, I don't want to say confidence, but like a little bit of optimism on the Texas side is like, I think this is a pretty well-established team at this point. Like, really, other than running back, I think you kind of know you've got some experienced players at like every position pretty much other than that. And you kind of know what their roles are. You kind of know what the upside is. Like, I think this team is going to roll in with more confidence for this game than they played with a year ago. And really, they gave their absolute best against Bama in Austin a year ago. But I think the thing with Bama is there's a little bit more uncertainty with some of these spots, especially on the back end with some of the injuries they're doing this week. But certainly these more unproven guys might be, a lot more talented than what Texas has got. And so I think there's a little bit of certainty on the Texas side you feel good about. Honestly, for me, what it comes down to is, do you trust Quinn Ewers to get the job done in this game? And I think this is really a defining moment for him. Not that it affects the Big 12 championship or anything like that, but I think there's a lot of really good things going on around him. He's the one that has to be composed and has to be accurate and has to make it through this game. Obviously, has to play 4 quarters, and he's got to be the guy that makes the difference. Because Texas is going to have trouble with Jalen Milroe, and I think Bama's going to get theirs. I think it's going to take a pretty impressive performance by Quinn Ewers to pull this off.
Max, you guys went to Ann Arbor for the next edition episode of The Official Visit. You went to Zingerman's, a place since I saw that movie, was it the 5-Year Engagement with Jason Segel?
5-Year Engagement.
Yeah.
Love that movie.
Yeah.
Yes.
And he worked there. And ever since I've seen that, I'm like, I've got to get to this deli. What did you have at Zingerman's?
We got a little bit of everything. We've got the Reuben, we got pastrami, we've got latkes, we got. We could have feasted there for days. Man. Like, that's one of those places that if you lived in town, how would you not go there every week and just fill up on bread and meats there, and sides were great. Like, it was a really impressive experience. That place could not have been more welcoming and hospitable for us in terms of filming our official visit episode. So yeah, that was, I would say that was probably the highlight of the trip for me. And I know that's like very well known. You go to Ann Arbor, you go to Zingerman's, but man, it lives up to the hype.
All right, Max, before I let you go, you're either going to enable my ego to grow here, or you're going to be able to like keep me where I need to be a functional football fan. Is FSU for real?
Paul, when I filled out the SWA does like they have writers do like a top 16 every week. Mm-hmm. I put Florida State at number 2 this week. Oh. And maybe that's I don't think that's crazy just based on the accomplishment. I think that LSU will still end up being a really good team. I mean, how could you not be impressed by what Mike Norvell has built there and how quickly he's gotten that thing flipped? Obviously, it took a little bit of patience early on, but I mean, they've got real dudes now. They've got NFL players now. You look at the schedule, and you know it better than I do, but I don't really see that 2-3 game stretch on the schedule like they had a year ago, where you drop a bunch of games and kind of fall out of this stuff. I think, there's a couple games you circle as being challenging. Certainly, Duke is one of them now, but man, I don't see a ton of losses on that schedule right now. I think I'm pretty optimistic that Florida State is going to win a lot of games. Hopefully they can stay healthy and keep playing at that level. But certainly I think they are firmly in the playoff conversation one weekend, which is silly to say. But no, I think that's not just an overreaction to how bad Clemson was. I think Florida State's for real.
Yeah, look, if they can finally shake that Clemson monkey off their back in a couple weeks, then I think it's full speed ahead. I really do. I think that that's going to maybe build some confidence in that team that wasn't there before.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, well, Max, enjoy Boulder. We'll talk to you next week.
Sounds good. Thanks, buddy.
All right, bye. There's Max Olson in Boulder. No Garrett. He will not make a stop for you.